Question 1. Who is accountable for managing the product backlog? A. The Scrum Master. B. The developers. C. The product owner. D. The key stakeholders. Answer: C. The product owner. The product owner is the single person accountable for effective product backlog management, which includes clearly communicating product goal and backlog items, and ordering them to best achieve goals and missions. While the developers or Scrum Master may assist with refining items, the accountability for maximizing the value of the product resulting from the work of the Scrum team rests solely with the product owner. This clear accountability prevents confusion and ensures there is a single source of direction for the product. For instance, if a stakeholder wants to add a new feature, they must go through the product owner, who will then decide its priority. A helpful tip is to remember the product owner owns the product backlog on behalf of the stakeholders. Question 2. A sprint can be cancelled if the sprint goal becomes obsolete. Who has the authority to cancel the sprint? A. The developers. B. The Scrum Master. C. The product owner. D. The stakeholders, by a majority vote. Answer: C. The product owner. Only the product owner has the authority to cancel a sprint, although they may do so after consulting with the developers, Scrum Master, and stakeholders. This is an exceptional event, as canceling a sprint is disruptive and costly, but it is necessary if the sprint goal becomes obsolete, making the planned work irrelevant. For example, if a competitor releases a feature that makes the current sprint's work pointless, the product owner might cancel it to pivot quickly. This authority is vested in the product owner because they are accountable for the product's value and return on investment. As a takeaway, remember that while anyone can propose it, only the product owner can make the final call to cancel. Question 3. What is the primary purpose of the Daily Scrum? A. To provide a status update to the Scrum Master and stakeholders. B. To inspect progress toward the sprint goal and adapt the sprint backlog as necessary. C. To solve complex technical problems and replan the entire sprint. D. To detail what each developer accomplished yesterday and what they will do today. Answer: B. To inspect progress toward the sprint goal and adapt the sprint backlog as necessary. The Daily Scrum is a 15-minute event for the developers of the Scrum team to inspect their progress toward the sprint goal and adapt the upcoming planned work. It is not a status meeting for managers but an internal planning meeting that fosters collaboration and self-management. The focus is on the team's collective progress and identifying any impediments that might threaten the sprint goal. For example, the developers might adjust their plan for the day based on an unforeseen issue one member discovered. A key tip is to view the Daily Scrum as a daily replanning event for the developers, by the developers, focused on achieving the sprint goal. Question 4. During a sprint, the developers realize they have selected too much work to meet the sprint goal. What should they do? A. Work overtime to complete everything they committed to. B. Ask the Scrum Master to remove some of the work. C. Collaborate with the product owner to adjust the work in the sprint backlog. D. Wait until the sprint retrospective to discuss the problem. Answer: C. Collaborate with the product owner to adjust the work in the sprint backlog. The developers are responsible for managing their work within the sprint, and if they discover they cannot complete everything, they must adapt. The correct approach is to collaborate with the product owner to negotiate the scope of the sprint backlog, ensuring that the most valuable work related to the sprint goal is prioritized. This maintains transparency and ensures the team remains focused on the objective without compromising quality or sustainable pace. For instance, they might agree to deliver a simpler version of a feature that still meets the sprint goal's intent. Always remember, the sprint goal is fixed, but the plan to achieve it, the sprint backlog, can be negotiated between the developers and the product owner. Question 5. Which statement best describes the Scrum team? A. A team of specialists led by a project manager, with a separate group for quality assurance. B. a small team of people, consisting of one Scrum Master, one Product Owner, and developers. C. A group of people directed by the Product Owner, with the Scrum Master facilitating their tasks. D. A team of developers managed by the Scrum Master, who reports to the Product Owner. Answer: B. A small team of people, consisting of one Scrum Master, one Product Owner, and developers. The fundamental unit in Scrum is a small, cohesive team called the Scrum team, which includes exactly 3 accountabilities: one Scrum Master, one Product Owner, and developers. There are no subteams or hierarchies within a Scrum team. It is a self-managing, cross-functional unit that has all the skills necessary to create a valuable, useful increment each sprint. This structure is designed to optimize flexibility, creativity, and productivity. For example, a single Scrum team might include software engineers, testers, and designers all working together as developers. Remember that while individuals may have specialized skills, their role on the team is simply developer, promoting shared ownership and collaboration. Question 6. What is the main purpose of the sprint review? A. To demonstrate the increment and get formal sign-off from the stakeholders. B. To inspect the outcome of the sprint and determine future adaptations. C. A meeting for the Scrum team to discuss what went well, what problems it ran into, and how those problems were solved. D. To assess individual developer performance and productivity. Answer: B. To inspect the outcome of the sprint and determine future adaptations. The purpose of the sprint review is to inspect the increment and adapt the product backlog if needed, making it a critical feedback loop. It is a working session where the Scrum team and key stakeholders collaborate on what was done in the sprint and decide what to do next. The focus is on the product itself and future direction, not on judging the team or getting a formal sign-off. For example, after seeing a new feature, stakeholders might provide feedback that leads the product owner to reorder the product backlog for the next sprint. Think of the sprint review as a product-focused event, where the key activity is inspecting the result of the work, the increment, to inform the future. Question 7. The 3 pillars of empirical process control are: A. Planning, execution, and control. B. Transparency, inspection, and adaptation. C. Commitment, courage, and focus. D. Product backlog, sprint backlog, and increment. Answer: B. Transparency, inspection, and adaptation. Scrum is founded on empiricism, which asserts that knowledge comes from experience and making decisions based on what is observed. The 3 pillars of this empirical process are transparency, inspection, and adaptation. Transparency means the process and work are visible to those performing the work and those receiving it. Inspection involves frequently examining Scrum artifacts and progress toward goals to detect undesirable variances. Adaptation means adjusting the process or the product when an inspection reveals that one or more aspects deviate outside acceptable limits. The Daily Scrum is a perfect example, where the team transparently shares progress, transparency, inspects progress towards the sprint goal, inspection, and adjusts its plan for the day, adaptation. Question 8. Who creates the definition of done? A. The product owner, with input from stakeholders. B. The Scrum team. C. The Scrum Master, based on organizational standards. D. The Quality Assurance Department. Answer: B. The Scrum team. The Scrum team is responsible for creating the definition of done, DOD, which is a shared understanding of what it means for work to be complete. If the organization has a predefined DOD as a standard, the Scrum team must adopt it as a minimum and can add to it to make it more stringent. This shared definition ensures that when a product backlog item is described as done, everyone on the team understands the level of quality and completeness it represents, which is critical for creating a potentially releasable increment. For example, a team's DOD might include code peer-reviewed, unit tests passed, and documentation updated. Always remember, the definition of done belongs to the entire Scrum team as it is their shared commitment to quality. Question 9. What is the time box for a sprint retrospective for a 1-month sprint? A. 1 hour. B. 3 hours. C. 4 hours. D. 8 hours. Answer: B. 3 hours. The sprint retrospective is timeboxed to a maximum of 3 hours for a 1-month sprint, and is usually shorter for shorter sprints. This timebox provides enough time for the Scrum team to have a productive discussion about its process and identify meaningful improvements without spending excessive time in meetings. The event's purpose is to plan ways to increase quality and effectiveness by inspecting the last sprint regarding individuals, interactions, processes, tools, and their definition of done. This rule of thumb, 3 hours for a 1-month sprint, is a guideline from the Scrum Guide. For a 2-week sprint, for example, the time box would typically be proportionally shorter, around 1.5 hours. Question 10. When can a developer select a new product backlog item to work on during a sprint? A. Only during sprint planning. B. Whenever they have the capacity, after discussing with the product owner. C. When they complete a sprint backlog item and there is still work needed to meet the sprint goal. D. After getting approval from the Scrum Master. Answer: C. When they complete a sprint backlog item and there is still work needed to meet the sprint goal. The developers are a self-managing team responsible for the sprint backlog and achieving the sprint goal. During the sprint, as they complete items from their plan, they pull the next most appropriate item from the sprint backlog to work on. The sprint backlog is a real-time picture of the work the developers plan to accomplish during the sprint, and they adapt it throughout the sprint as more is learned. For example, after finishing one task, a developer will look at the remaining items in the sprint backlog and select the next one that helps the team progress toward the sprint goal. Think of the sprint backlog as the developer's plan, which they own and adjust to best meet their objective. Question 11. What does it mean for a Scrum team to be cross-functional? A. Every member of the team can do every task. B. The team has all the competencies needed to create a valuable increment each sprint. C. The team is composed of members from different departments within the organization. D. The team works on multiple projects at the same time. Answer: B. The team has all the competencies needed to create a valuable increment each sprint. A cross-functional team in Scrum means that the team members collectively have all the skills necessary to create value each sprint without depending on others not part of the team. This does not mean that every individual possesses every skill, but that the team as a unit has the required expertise, such as design, development, testing, and operations. This structure reduces external dependencies and handoffs, which empowers the team to move faster and take full ownership of their work. For instance, instead of waiting for a separate QA department, the developers have the skills to test the work themselves as part of creating the increment. A simple way to remember this is that a cross-functional team can get the work done on its own. Question 12. A Scrum Master observes that the developers are having difficulty with a technical challenge and are not collaborating to solve it. What is the most appropriate action for the Scrum Master? A. Solve the technical problem for the team. B. Tell the team how to solve the problem. C. Coach the team on the importance of self-management and collaboration. D. Report the team's lack of progress to the product owner. Answer: C. Coach the team on the importance of self-management and collaboration. The Scrum Master's role is not to solve the team's problems but to act as a coach and facilitator, helping the team become more effective and self-managing. In this situation, directly solving the problem or dictating a solution would undermine the developer's ownership and learning opportunities. The most effective approach is to facilitate a discussion, ask powerful questions, and guide them to collaborate and find their own solution, thereby strengthening their self-management capabilities. For example, the Scrum Master might say, "It seems we're facing a tough challenge. How can we as a team combine our knowledge to tackle this?" This reinforces the principle that the developers own their work and are responsible for how it gets done. Question 13. What is the sprint goal? A. A detailed list of all the work to be completed in a sprint. B. A commitment by the developers to complete all items in the sprint backlog. C. A single, high-level objective for the sprint that provides focus and flexibility. D. The theme for the sprint, decided by the Scrum Master. Answer: C. A single, high-level objective for the sprint that provides focus and flexibility. The sprint goal is a concise objective for the sprint that is created during sprint planning, providing guidance to the developers on why they are building the increment. It gives the team flexibility regarding the exact functionality implemented, as the goal remains stable even if the detailed plan, the sprint backlog, needs to adapt as more is learned. This focus encourages collaboration and creativity, as the team works together to achieve a shared outcome rather than just completing a list of tasks. For example, a sprint goal might be, implement a basic shopping cart checkout process, which allows the developers to make trade-offs on specific features as long as the core objective is met. Question 14. Who is responsible for ensuring that the sprint retrospective is a positive and productive meeting? A. The product owner. B. The entire Scrum team. C. The Scrum Master. D. An external Agile coach. Answer: C. The Scrum Master. The Scrum Master is accountable for establishing Scrum as defined in the Scrum Guide, which includes ensuring that all Scrum events take place and are positive, productive, and kept within the time box. For the Sprint Retrospective, the Scrum Master serves the Scrum team by facilitating the event as requested or needed to ensure it remains a safe space for open discussion and focuses on actionable improvements. While the entire team participates, the Scrum Master is the one who ensures the event achieves its purpose. For example, they might suggest a specific format for the retrospective to guide the conversation constructively. Think of the Scrum Master as the guardian of the Scrum process, ensuring each part is effective. Question 15. If multiple Scrum teams are working on the same product, what is the minimum number of product backlogs and product owners required? A. One product backlog for each team and one product owner for each team. B. One product backlog and one product owner. C. One product backlog and one product owner for every 2 to 3 teams. D. As many product backlogs as needed, but only one product owner. Answer: B. One product backlog and one product owner. When developing a single product, there must be only one product backlog, regardless of how many Scrum teams are working on it. This ensures that all work is transparent and prioritized in one place, preventing conflicting efforts and confusion. Consequently, there is also only one product owner who is accountable for managing that product backlog and maximizing the product's value. While this product owner may delegate some responsibilities, the accountability remains with them. This single source of truth is crucial for aligning all teams toward a common product goal. Remember the rule: one product backlog, one product owner. Question 16. What is the outcome of a successful sprint retrospective? A. A list of people to blame for the sprint's failures. B. A revised product backlog. C. At least one high-priority process improvement item identified for implementation in the next sprint. D. A formal report for management on the team's performance. Answer: C. At least one high-priority process improvement item identified for implementation in the next sprint. The primary purpose of the sprint retrospective is for the Scrum team to inspect itself and create a plan for improvements to be enacted during the next sprint. The most impactful improvements are identified and can be added to the sprint backlog for the next sprint, making the commitment to continuous improvement concrete and visible. This ensures that learning is translated into action rather than just being a discussion. For example, the team might decide to improve their peer review process and create an item in the next sprint backlog, research and implement an automated code checking tool. The key takeaway is that the retrospective is about creating actionable plans for improvement, not assigning blame or reporting to others. Question 17. The developers should have all the skills needed to A. Turn product backlog items into a valuable, useful increment of the product. B. Market and sell the product to customers. C. Define the product goal and order the product backlog. D. Manage the budget and timeline for the project. Answer: A. Turn product backlog items into a valuable, useful increment of the product. The specific accountability of the developers within the Scrum team is to create any aspect of a usable increment each sprint. They are the people who are committed to creating a valuable, useful increment from the selected product backlog items. This is why the team must be cross-functional, possessing all the skills required to do this work, such as software development, quality assurance, user experience design, and operations. For example, in a single sprint, they can design, build, test, and integrate a new feature completely. Remember, the developers are the doers who are accountable for the creation of the increment. Question 18. During the sprint, the product owner asks the developers to add a new, urgent item to the sprint backlog. What should the developers do? A. Immediately add the item, as the product owner is accountable for value. B. Refuse to add the item because the sprint backlog cannot be changed. C. Add the item and work overtime to finish all the originally planned work plus the new item. D. Discuss the new item with the product owner and assess how it impacts the sprint goal and the existing work. Answer: D. Discuss the new item with the product owner and assess how it impacts the sprint goal and the existing work. While the sprint backlog is emergent and can change during a sprint, any changes must be made transparently and collaboratively. The developers are the sole owners of the sprint backlog and are committed to the sprint goal. Therefore, they should facilitate a conversation with the product owner to understand the new item's importance and negotiate what, if anything, can be removed from the sprint backlog to accommodate it without endangering the sprint goal. This preserves the team's focus and self-management. For instance, they might agree to swap the new item for a lower priority one of similar effort. The key is to remember that the sprint backlog is a flexible plan owned by the developers, but changes are a negotiation to protect the sprint goal. Question 19. Which Scrum value is best demonstrated when a developer admits they are struggling with a task and asks the team for help? A. Focus. B. Commitment. C. Courage. D. Respect. Answer: C. Courage. The Scrum value of courage is about doing the right thing and working on tough problems, which includes being transparent about challenges and impediments. When a team member openly admits they need help, they are showing courage to be vulnerable for the good of the team and the sprint goal. This fosters an environment of trust and mutual support, where problems are addressed early rather than hidden. The other values are also important, but this specific act of seeking help in the face of a struggle directly exemplifies courage. A helpful tip is to think of courage as the value that enables transparency and allows the team to tackle issues head-on. Question 20. How is the product backlog ordered? A. It is ordered by the Scrum Master to ensure a smooth workflow. B. The developers pull items in the order they prefer to work on them. C. It is ordered by the product owner to best achieve goals and missions. D. It is ordered from highest to lowest risk by the stakeholders. Answer: C. It is ordered by the product owner to best achieve goals and missions. The product owner is accountable for ordering the items in the product backlog to maximize the value delivered by the Scrum team. This ordering is not a one-time activity but a continuous process of refinement based on stakeholder feedback, market changes, and learning. While factors like risk, value, dependencies, and effort are considered, the final decision on the order rests with the product owner. For example, the product owner might place a high-value, low-effort feature at the top of the backlog to deliver quick wins. Remember that ordering is a dynamic process driven by the product owner's strategy for the product. Question 21. What does the term timebox mean in Scrum? A recommended but flexible duration for an event. B. A maximum amount of time allotted for an event or a sprint. C. The exact amount of time that an event must take. D. A commitment to a fixed deadline for the entire project. Answer: B. A maximum amount of time allotted for an event or a sprint. In Scrum, all events, including the sprint itself, are time-boxed, meaning they have a maximum duration that cannot be exceeded. This ensures that an appropriate amount of time is spent on key activities without allowing for waste, creating a rhythm and focus for the team. For example, a daily Scrum is time-boxed to 15 minutes. If the conversation is not finished, the team takes it offline, but the event itself ends. This constraint forces efficiency and prevents meetings from dragging on indefinitely. A simple way to remember this is that a time box is a maximum, not a minimum, or an exact duration. Question 22. Which of the following is an accountability of the Scrum Master? A. Ensuring the product backlog is well defined and prioritized. B. Directing the developers on how to complete their work. C. Creating a valuable, useful increment each sprint. D. Removing impediments to the Scrum team's progress. Answer: D. Removing impediments to the Scrum team's progress. A key service the Scrum Master provides to the Scrum team is causing the removal of impediments to their progress. An impediment is any obstacle that hinders the team from being productive and achieving the sprint goal. While the Scrum Master coaches the team to resolve impediments themselves whenever possible, they will step in to remove blockers that are beyond the team's control, such as organizational bureaucracy or resource issues. For example, if the team needs a specific software license and is stuck in a lengthy approval process, the Scrum Master would work with the relevant department to expedite it. Remember, the Scrum Master is a leader who serves, and a primary way they serve is by clearing the path for the team. Question 23. What is an increment? A. The plan created by the developers during sprint planning. B. A concrete stepping stone toward the product goal. C. The list of all items that could possibly be included in the product. D. The team's productivity metric, measured at the end of each sprint. Answer: B. A concrete stepping stone toward the product goal. An increment is the sum of all the product backlog items completed during a sprint and the value of the increments of all previous sprints. Each increment is a concrete step toward the product goal, and it must be usable and meet the definition of done to ensure quality and transparency. At the end of a sprint, the new increment must be a usable, integrated whole, meaning it works with all prior increments. For example, if Sprint 1 delivered a login feature, and Sprint 2 delivers a user profile feature, the new increment is a product where users can both log in and view their profile. A key point is that an increment is not just a piece of code, but a usable and valuable piece of the product. Question 24. What is the role of management external to the Scrum team? A. To direct the work of the developers and assign tasks. B. To participate in the daily Scrum to check on progress. C. To support the Scrum team's decisions and remove organizational impediments. D. To approve the sprint backlog before the sprint begins. Answer: C. To support the Scrum team's decisions and remove organizational impediments. Management's role in an organization adopting Scrum is to shift from directing work to supporting the self-managing Scrum teams. They should trust the team to make decisions about their work and focus on creating an environment where Scrum can thrive. This includes helping to remove organizational impediments that are beyond the team's influence, fostering a culture of empiricism, and respecting the Scrum framework's boundaries. For instance, a manager might help change a company policy that is hindering the team's ability to deliver an increment each sprint. The takeaway is that managers become enablers and supporters, not commanders. Question 25. Who is accountable for creating the plan for the sprint backlog? A. The product owner. B. The Scrum Master. C. The developers. D. The entire Scrum team. Answer, C. The developers. The developers are the ones who are accountable for creating and managing the sprint backlog. During sprint planning, they select items from the product backlog and create a plan for how they will turn those items into a done increment during the sprint. This plan, which includes a forecast of work and the tasks needed to accomplish it, is the sprint backlog. Because they are the ones doing the work, they are best equipped to decide how it should be done, which is a key aspect of self-management. While the product owner provides the what and the why, the sprint goal, the developers own the how, the sprint backlog.